right? And the more attuned we are to our child, the better our response will be, right? And the last thing you want to do is to overcompensate. Meaning to say that, oh no, I did something wrong, or did I do something wrong, that kind of thing, or I need to right the wrong, you know. Therefore, a lot of things that I do now, through experience, seem to push the child further away.
Hello and welcome to Catholic Parents Online, a podcast channel where we share tips and resources on Catholic parenting. Presented through the lens of the theology of the body, we will see how we can be gifted to our children in ways that will help them find true happiness and flourish in accordance with God's wonderful plan for each and every one of them. My name is John Hui and I'm your host for this series. Today we're going to discuss a topic which, while challenging, is a very necessary topic to discuss because many parents have come to us seeking help in this area, and that is what to do if my child says he's gay or same-sex attracted, right? So we need to understand the various terminologies involved at the same time to understand the journey that is required for this. And to help us along this journey is Mr. Nicholas Lim. Welcome to the show, Nicholas.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, so Nicholas has very experience in this area, and his work experience has brought him through a lot in various aspects of counseling and psychology work and family therapy. Nicholas, would you like to share with our listeners a little bit about yourself, your family, and your work?
So, hi everyone. Thanks for having me, John. I'm actually 45 this year. I'm a psychologist, happily married to my wife, Jerry. We have 3 kids. And I've been working with this group of friends for the past almost a decade now. Right? I chanced upon it because I've always, for the past 20 years, working with vulnerable teenagers and their families in different settings, from school setting, community setting. Right? Lately, for obvious reasons, I'm seeing more clients, now close to 10 years now, with people wondering about their own sexuality, getting themselves in situations where they worry about their own health, and parents are concerned also about the decisions that they are making, the kids are making, and also wondering about their own view on this situation. And sometimes all put together can be quite stressful, not only for the individuals, young people and parents alike, but also for the entire family put together.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nicholas. As a start, we can understand that there are many different terms that's being thrown around right now, things like gay, lesbian, bisexual, and homosexuality, same-sex attracted, and things like that. So to put us off on a rather firm and clear footing, would you like to share with us the various definitions of these terms?
So let's start with the homosexuals, right? Homosexuals are understood as somebody being sexually or romantically attracted, right, to somebody of the same sex, right? Gay and lesbians are pop culture terminologies, meaning the same. That is homosexual, right? Yeah. So now we loosely use gays and lesbians more than like homosexuals. Oh, I'm gay, or as opposed to like I'm homosexual, right? So that's the homosexual, gay, and lesbians, right? Same-sex attracted may not necessarily have their interest sexually or romantically. Right, I may be attracted to somebody of the same gender, right? But there is no desire, motivation to be sexually involved, right? So that's to be understood in that way, at least in my work, right? Yeah. So if everybody says that, oh, I'm gay or I'm lesbian, that presupposes that you have sexual interest or have had already engaged in the relationship or in a sexual way. Yeah.
Am I right to say that a person may have same-sex attraction, which may not necessarily have romantic undertones, but for those who have perhaps the condition of homosexuality, there is an understanding that this denotes a certain kind of sexual attraction or a kind of romantic attraction to someone of the same sex.
Yes.
And that for those who identify as gay or identify as lesbian, is it right to say that it means that they are already into relationships, sexual relationships with those of the same sex?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. And those bisexual?
would mean that they are sexually and romantically attracted to individuals of both sexes. Right? Yeah.
Okay, right. So, good. Thank you very much, Nicholas, I think, for helping to clarify the terminology so that we know where we are, and the discussion will go on along in a more comfortable and in a more clear tone.
Clear, yeah.
Yeah, clear manner, yeah. So, for parents, if their children come out to them and say that, look, mom and dad, I've got same-sex attraction, or I'm a homosexual, or I'm gay, or I'm lesbian, right? What can parents do in such a situation? And I'm sure, as with many other situations whereby parents do get certain surprises from the children, this is probably another one of those. But I think it is important that parents react in a way that is affirming to the child, not in terms of affirming their identity, or not in terms of affirming their lifestyle, but rather to affirm their goodness as a child of God and of their own child, right? So what can parents do?
So very quick background first, or basically to set the premise, right, for the answers, right? What can parents do? We need to first understand that as young individuals, they are at a very different place compared to us adults. Right? I write extensively a lot about this on my website, nicholasgabriellim.com. My practice is actually guided by neuroscience. So at the end of the day, a young person is more limbic than prefrontal, right? Meaning to say they are more emotional, more relational, all right? And the neuroscience informs us that if we want to respond to them and help the engagement be meaningful, we need to engage them at that level of emotions, at the level of the relationship. Right, as opposed to prefrontal, which the adult is, which is here at the forehead, that the prefrontal is fully developed for the adults. Right, so we are naturally as adults thinking of the consequences, meaning to say, like, oh, my child told me that, oh my goodness, how can he be gay? Or you're Christian, that kind of thing, right? You're thinking ahead already, like 10 times ahead of your child, but your child is not there with you for sure. Right? So when a child approaches you and talk about a topic like this, we need to first appreciate the fact that both of you come from a different place. Right? And the child is looking for you to connect with him or her at whatever that he or she is going through. Right? So to respond, we want to first refrain from reacting from the prefrontal. That means don't allow yourself to jump ahead of you by thinking of all the possible negative consequences that potentially might come with a situation of being attracted to somebody of the same gender, right? And then quickly come out with possible solutions to say anything right or wrong about it, or should not about it, right? All this should be put on the back burner, and instead be there to be open to want to hear what the child has to say. Right, so in this situation, I would offer the consideration of this thing called the recognizing the behavior, understanding the meaning of the behavior, right, and recognizing the child's stage of their life, which is actually the work of Erik Erikson, right, where we talk about your child at a young age trying to find out who he or she is, especially sexually in this case, right. So if the child says, "Oh, mom, I'm actually gay or less," or you notice that your child is holding a friend's hand, right? So your boy is holding another male friend's hand, for example, and you recognize that that's the behavior, or the child highlighted that, oh, this is the behavior. I like this boy. If it's your son offering the information to you, recognize that it's the first behavior, express behavior. Then you want to then find out what's the meaning of the behavior, right? So how do you do that? Right, so as a limbic, more of a limbic person, right, you would like to ask the question, oh, okay, I mean, what does that, who's that person, you know, how you know this person, right? It's interesting that you highlight this to me. Is it something that we know, somebody that we know? What is it about this person that you like, right? The point here is that you want to know what that behavior is about. Right, so the child may offer information like, oh, he's one person who really accepts me for who I am. You know, he's always very understanding. You know, he kind of know my fears and anxieties, that kind of thing. So actually the meaning here is that the child have been seeking for somebody, something, right, to appreciate him or her better, right? So now then you're more informed that the child is actually seeking for that, right? So what then do you do after that? Now that you know the meaning of the behavior and whatever that the child has offered to you, you recognize that this is basically what he or she has been doing, right? So now the child, the adult, the parent can now consider, what is it that I can do to now help my child find that meaning more appropriately, more in a way that is safe, for example, right? So if you acquire, in the previous stage, acquire enough information, you probably know where he or she has been going out to seek meaning. So it could be the clubs, it could be a friend's house, it could be in school, for example, right? Then moving forward, the parent can offer the support. You need me to speak to this person. You need to. How about we go together? You know, is there a reason why you need to go to this place? Right? Can we offer another place for you? I understand this place is a bit like a lot of drinking happening. You know, is there a reason why you would like to go there to drink? Can you? Is it okay if we find other places that you can still hang out with your friend, but it's not so dangerous, maybe, right? Yeah. So we want to differentiate these three. So I say again, the behavior, the meaning behind the behavior, and how is it helping the child to develop positively.
Right. Yeah. So it seems that before we even jump in to tell them about the church teachings and the morality of it all and all that, it is important that we understand what they're saying,
yes,
why they're saying it,
yeah,
and what the needs are that they have, which they feel have been not met, but they seem to be met in this person that they are attracted to. Am I right to say that?
Yes,
okay,
yes, that's right.
All right.
That's right, that's correct.
And from there on, what else can the parent do now that the parent has identified this process, right? And then, okay, so my son or my daughter is going out with this person. They tend to go to this particular place or club, or maybe just going to somewhere else, right? Or each other's house or whatever it is. And they find a lot of comfort and solace and meaning in life in each other. So as a parent now, what can I do?
If the parents have not already have what I call an inspirational relationship with the child, I differentiate that relationship with that of like positional relationship. Meaning to say that I'm your father. What I say, you need to listen to me. But my child don't respect me. But I only respect you. I listen to you only because you're my father. So that's positional authority in action, and I will only listen because you're my father, right? As opposed to inspirational authority, where I'm your father, and I've had various meaningful encounters with you together. You look up to me, you respect me, and you value my input. Right? You have to say anything at all, you would consider twice about what I have to say. In that scenario, I have inspirational authority, right? And therefore, if I were to have a relationship like that with inspirational authority, that would be a lot better, because in the event that the behavior that's being expressed, that's been highlighted, reflects or show that you might be in danger. If I offer my point of view, the likelihood of you listening to me is higher. So if you don't have that relationship, that kind of relationship, it's a bit tougher. So from a young age, parents might want to consider having to build that kind of relationship. Right? Not to say that positional authority is not important. It is, and you need to have both.
It probably starts from there anyway.
Yes,
right?
exactly. So sometimes even at teenage years, for example, you want to assert positional authority, but because you have the inspirational authority, the child will listen because of your assertion as the father, right, or as the mother, right, or even as the catechist for the matter, the leader of the group, whatever it is, right. But because the inspirational authority is present and the respect is there, they would consider and be open to what you have to say. In the context of talking about the faith and the view of the church, right, they'll be more open to it. And because of that open relationship, they will even be happy to even have that debate with you. right? Debate in a good way, having to seek understanding and greater depth of the topic for that matter.
Yeah. So it seems that the relationship with the child is very, very important for the journey to progress meaningfully.
Yes.
Right. So if we have not been able to build that up from early on, then it is a wake-up call, and it is time for us to then start working on it before we even start telling off the child for what you think is totally unacceptable behavior, things like that, right?
Yeah.
So
and it's an interesting thing. I'm not sure whether you heard about Norton, right? Norton Antivirus, Norton, a company, did a survey some time back ago, and then they asked both parents and child about how much they know about what the child is doing. Right. Interestingly, the parents reported that they actually know a lot about what their child is doing, right? But in actual fact, they don't at all, because the kids reported that the parents have no idea what they're doing.
absolutely, I fully agree with that.
Yeah. So we sometimes overestimate what we think we know about what the child is engaged in, right? And then sometimes that affects the way we engage our kids.
That's right. We've got to wipe that off from our brain, that we think we know everything about our child.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just our prefrontal acting up so much, thinking that we know it better, when in actual fact they are thinking so many other things without you realizing what they're thinking about, and even doing things they're doing that you don't know about. And sometimes you even don't know how to appreciate it at all.
That's right.
And especially talking about this topic, a lot of parents that I work with have really no clue the kind of environment that their kids go into when they are exploring same-sex attraction, or even the gay lifestyle, the lesbian lifestyle, or homosexuality in general. Right? There are a lot of concerns out there as reported, right? But not to generalize, in my own personal experience, right, having to work with individuals who are homosexuals themselves, the kind of activities they get into, and sometimes allow themselves to be vulnerable, and I guess affecting their own safety as well, and I guess causing concern for their own loved ones as well. It's quite a lot of work to be done there. I'm just wondering whether the community that we are speaking to are aware of that. Right, so allow them, if they come to you and talk about it, to talk to you about what they know, and hopefully it is a safe space for them to come to you, talk about it, without any judgment, without any need you feel to actually want to right the wrongs, or to want to preach for the matter, right?
I think that can come later.
Yeah. There's a time and place for that.
That's right.
But where are they right now? What's the meaning of all those things that they're saying and doing, right? Yeah.
Yes. So I think it's important, like you mentioned, that the parents need to have that positive, inspirational position with their children, all right, in order to be able to be on the same side as the children, because very often the way we react sometimes tends to put a barrier rather than to build a so-called bridge that help us connect with our children. And we tend to say things or do things that actually push them further away, which is the last thing we want.
Exactly.
All right. So I think it's so important that we must have this particular relationship, positive relationship with them. Work on it, and then after that, really use that in order to be able to continue to journey with them. But it's a tough journey, it's a long journey. We have to be prepared for that.
Yes. And because our as adults, our prefrontal kick in, right, so naturally, and we tend to overcompensate in what we do. Overcompensate basically means we start asking ourselves, what did I do wrong? What did I do right? That kind of thing. How can I do it better? That kind of thing, right? So they go into this overdrive, of which is unnecessary most of the time. Overdrive of thoughts and fear, and trying to take actions that they thought at that point in time they may not have taken, but should now do more. But the child is there at that point in time, now present where he or she is with the issue, and you're trying to do a little bit more, usually a lot more. The child is going to not be able to connect with you, and definitely you'll not be able to connect with the child because you miss the point, you miss where the child is, right? So we want to refrain from doing that.
So while we are on this point, and you're saying that a lot of things will be running through the minds of parents and so on, at this point in time, would you like to share with us, are there possible factors that can contribute to same-sex attraction or homosexuality, or are there not?
A lot of factors, John.
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors. And I'm scanning through my mind now, all the clients that I work with, right? Each one of them are so different.
Yes.
You know, maybe just by way of example, right? Maybe a young child could have the opportunity to interact with their classmates in school at a very young age, right? Very exploratory, very discovery, maybe at a camp setting or a school setting, for example, and a lot of like having to talk about each other's private parts, or even dealing with each other in such a way that the exposure of private parts, for example, and that led to curiosity and leading to pleasure, and pleasure could lead to like, oh, I think this is what I like to do.
This feels right.
This feels right. You know, when that comes about at a very young age, you automatically connect to a behavior like that or experience like that, and the understanding of me being homosexual could easily be latched on, because all other things do not make me feel as good or better, right? So that's one example. Another example could be I'm a little bit more effeminate as a boy, for example, or a little bit more masculine as a girl, right? Curiosity, right, leads to a lot of research online, right? And understanding that, okay, actually a lot of the literature online kind of like describes who I am and what I'm experiencing right now, right? So maybe I'm somewhat effeminate, or I think I am attracted to somebody of the same gender, and then led to me having to dabble more with all the behaviors and activities that will lead me to affirm my understanding of who I am, because everything else don't cut it. You know, and some maybe even explore hormonal pills, for example, right, to assist them to, I guess, explore further and deeper into the sexual, the gender in which they feel most identified with. That's another example. And more developmentally, maybe in a growing up environment, they experience relationship that are more submissive, for example, or more domineering, right? And they're very used to that kind of dynamics at home, right? So it's a learned environment, right? It's more nurturing in that kind of space, right? And they tend to subscribe to or be more inclined to a more submissive behavior, right? So hanging around more with like a person of the same gender and being able to be more submissive, because that's the most comfortable behavior to engage in, right? Somebody more domineering, you wonder what it's like, and you enter a space where you explore that submissive, domineering relationship, right? That will attend to your desire for affection, the desire for intimacy, and then one thing led the other. Because we are growing up, and that becomes very meaningful and very desirable, right? And therefore, I would want to explore further interest in it. Yeah, I'd like to just circle back to one point you mentioned earlier, John, because this came out in my work with the people I work with, obviously, right? This idea is a psychological terminology called projection, right? So this is just adding on to the point about what would lead a person to be attracted to a person of the same gender. Is this thing about me feeling inadequate, me feeling that I'm lack of certain traits, or I feel insecure about certain things about myself. It so happened that this person that comes along of the same gender may be able to show me that this is basically what it will look like, you know. That also can happen. Yes. Right? Because this is something that I'm so probably insecure about, probably I would desire very much, but this other person of the same gender personifies that entirely, right? And it helpful or not helpful that this person actually attends to me, right? Accepts me for who I am, my interests, and also have the same desire to be sexually attracted to each other, offers me opportunity to develop the relationship, and that would now facilitate my further interest in being in the same-sex relationship. That too will be the other factor that could also, I guess, assist me in my exploration for this attraction. Yeah. Right. And many others, John. Is endless.
Endless, yes, I understand. Yeah, so it would seem that there are many possible causes, right? And at the same time, we also understand that among those who experience some degree or various degrees of same-sex attraction in their teenage years and everything, many of them would actually go on to really be so-called opposite sex attracted over time, right? And it's a part of the development, because some of them have reported that when they were young, they sort of like, in a way, hero worshipped some of the others of the same sex, and they more or less like admired them, and they felt an attraction to them, and they thought that they were actually same-sex attracted. And then later on, as they went on, they realized, oh well, actually that was just a part of the phase of their life. Right? Would you agree that that is part of the journey?
It depends how long they've dabbled into that lifestyle, right? So if they started from, like, say, as young as 13, 14 years old, for example, and they've never explored other kind of relationships, right, which are heterosexual in nature, right, but more homosexual all the way, right? By the time they reach a certain age, it's conditioned behavior that informs the choice to want to continue a certain lifestyle, right? But if they are on a constant search for their own identity, not just sexual identity, in our context, probably what God wants of them, their vocation, for example. Yes. And they are open to exploring other areas of life, more than sexuality, for example, then possibly their search may go into other areas of their life, more than their sexual being. Right? This is possible, highly possible. Right? So there's one aspect is conditioned behavior. Sometimes it's a bit hard to get out of it. It's even more so that if they dabble in, say, drugs or alcohol, for example, it's put into the whole mix. Right. To have them consider in a very objective manner in that kind of situation, it's unlikely. So that's more of the conditioned behavior. The non-conditioned behavior, it means like that a behavior that persists over time, would be that of behaviors that are influence, right? Because of pop culture, because of peer pressure, and maybe the environment that they're in not conducive for them to explore otherwise because it'd be unsafe, right? So common among this group would be the don't tell me, I don't ask, you don't tell me kind of environment at home or in the community, for example, if they know that their parents will not be accepting of this kind of behavior. And this unsaid rule or even articulated rule, for example, you don't tell me, I don't know, you just do whatever you want to do, kind of thing, right? And they will just go ahead and do whatever they want to do, but as long as I don't bring it up, then I can proceed to do whatever I want to do. Right? In that kind of environment, then I don't bring it up. I don't talk about it. Nobody knows. Then I don't do whatever I want to do. Right? Whatever it may be. And that cultivates a certain outlook, perspective to life, even behaviors. And you will persist. And then at some point in time, you will have to make a choice. Right? And I've worked with those who even consider the more extreme cases, like homotherapy, for example, gender change, for example. And then they have actually considered that actually this is not me at the end of the day. Right? And they detransition, we call it. So those are also more extreme cases, I suppose. But there are those who have, even some of them have married actually. Some of those who are already living a gay lifestyle for quite a long number of years. And then have always constantly been questioning about their own identity. Have reached a point where they are married now and they've got even kids.
Adopted.
No, they're married.
Oh, they're married. Okay.
As in, like they become. That means they married somebody of the opposite gender, and then they have their own kids.
I see. So that means someone who has, in a way, realized that was not who they were, that was not what they identified with, and that they've, in a way, reverted to having heterosexual relationships and with opposite sex attraction, and then started their own families from there on.
Yes,
there have been many examples. Many examples.
Yes,
and I think what you've brought up so far is so important, right? That we must really have that positive relationship with our child, so that even if our child comes up with certain things that we as parents may not want to hear, but we need to be there with them and for them, and to really hear them out, to understand where they're coming from, where their needs are, if there are any needs which are still unmet, and how we can then be an essential part and a positive part of that journey, so that they can continue then to choose what is truly good for themselves. Am I right to say that?
Yes, very true. Yeah. Because if you are not that person, they will go out to find that person.
Right.
To be understood, to feel accepted.
To meet that unmet need.
Yes. Right. And they are looking for that need. Right. So if it's not at home, then where else would they be? And having been in this space for many years now, I wouldn't say that there are many safe places or positive spaces to gain support, to gather support for themselves, to go through this journey of understanding who they are, as the male or female he or she is, right? Yeah, not many lah, right? Even if there are, we call it they are more affirmative in nature, meaning to say that I feel this way, therefore the affirmative narrative encourages, okay, accept for who you are. There's no room for exploration, very little room for exploration. Accept it, and we are here to accept you, right? Because you think that this is a better lifestyle for you, and you should embrace it. And this is very common in the West, the European countries, and the Western countries, right? In my experience, it's to the expense of the person having to explore fully who he or she is. At that expense, you see. What that means is this: if I now feel that I am gay, and you continue to affirm that I'm gay, I should accept that. There's no room for me to think that there's a possibility I may not be.
That's right.
Right,
That's right.
And it should be also equally available for a person who want to consider that.
That's right.
Right. So not many, at least I'm hearing from my clients, the people I'm working with, a lot is available for the affirmative narrative. But if they feel that they are wondering, maybe not, then it's unsafe for them to actually talk about it.
Right. They may feel not accepted.
Yes, that's right. So I hope to be able to have this conversation, with us here today, and also I on my own am doing my own projects out there in Singapore, right? To say, hey, look, if you wonder ever that there's an alternative to this, can we talk? Sure, please come and talk.
Yes, that's right.
And at the end of the day, after talking, you feel that this is ready for you, then by all means make a decision, because by which time you are an adult to make your own decisions.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But until then, let's continue talking. And there are many other things in life for you to also explore, not just your own sexuality.
That's right.
You get what I mean?
That's right.
So let's talk.
Yes, that's right. I think it's so important to provide this safe space for these individuals to be able to come out and to discuss and to share their experiences. Because like you mentioned before, everyone is different.
Yes.
Every journey is different.
Yes.
And I think when we can actually really understand what their journey is, we can understand where their needs are, where their needs have been met, where their needs have not been met. It is only then that we will be able to understand better what they are crying out for, what is within them, and how we can then accompany them on this journey in the way that they deserve, rather than to try to take them as a problem to be solved. And I think at this point in time, I kind of like what Jason Everett said once, that every individual is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be loved. And beautiful. I thought that really hit me very hard.
Yes.
And I think that is really the kind of like a mindset that all of us must have when journeying with various individuals with different persuasions, with different inclinations, with different attractions. I think we need to know that, because I think that is what Christ really came to show us to do, and like how he ministered to the Samaritan woman, right, at the well. And I think it is something which hopefully many of us can do, but many of us do not feel well equipped.
Yes.
Now, is there kind of like a group in Singapore, right, that can accompany these individuals on such a journey, so that in case there are these individuals who are listening in, or the parents who are listening in, they can then know where to search for such support?
Well, obviously, in the context of the Catholic Church in Singapore, the Catholic community, then we have courage, right? And I'm sure everybody may be familiar with this. And,
well, there may be some who may not, so would like to share with us what the courage does, and how they can access this resource.
I can't speak for courage, but I'm with the community to support the learning. From my point of view, as in as a mental health practitioner, and also understanding the teachings of Pope John Paul II. Hopefully, according each person, the rightful dignity that he or she has, and to allow this person to explore his or her own identity, and God's calling for them, right? And to journey together. You can imagine in the secular world, it's already quite confusing, right? So with courage, at least we have the perspective of the faith, the Catholic faith, and how can we go about living out the life that God wants us to live out, right? As somebody who has interest in this lifestyle or the identity that they subscribe to at this point in time.
And I think the other one that our listeners, Catholic parents, right, would be quite keen on would be Encourage, which is really running parallel with Courage. And
Yes.
Encourage is an organization that supports the loved ones of those who experience same-sex attraction, right? And provides a space, a safe space for them to share with each other and to be supported in that journey as well as they continue
That's right.
on this quite a difficult journey.
Yeah, so it may not be because your child is gay or lesbian that you are on this Encourage community, right? There's, as long as you feel that you would like to be supported, right, on the journey of appreciating, understanding the whole gay, lesbian agenda, lifestyle, activity, or event, and you are interested to still be faithful to the teachings of the Presbyterian or the church,
Of the church,
right?
yeah.
This would be a place if that was your interest,
Yes.
yeah, for parents,
Yeah. It's so important. I think, yes, as Nicholas has so rightly mentioned, right, this is a safe space for those who like to be supported on this journey. If you have loved ones, not just children, but even if your own spouse has got same-sex attraction.
That's right. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
and this space provides for that as well. And so it's Encourage Singapore, and it is a community that really can provide that kind of a space to help you on that journey. So we'll provide some of the resources and the websites in the show notes for this one. And it is so important that we must have some form of support to be with us on this challenging journey, as with many other challenging journeys in parenting, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Yes, absolutely. So, as Nicholas has mentioned, there are definitely support services available, support groups available, which continue to be faithful to the teachings of the magisterium of the church. So do look out for these, and we'll put these in the show notes as well. Yeah. Now, I think that for parents who first find out that their children may have this orientation, many of them may start questioning, right? You mentioned earlier on, but I didn't quite ask earlier, but many of them may start asking whether they had been at fault for this, whether they was there anything wrong they did, and and they start beating themselves around the head and blaming themselves for this, and it's so painful, right, to see that, because I've seen that among some of the parents who have come to me as well. So what would you say to these parents?
I would say, as with all other issues, growing up issues, parents do their best all the time at the point in time. This is no exception, and we shouldn't be beating ourselves up for it, because we only know how to respond to a situation as best as we could at that point in time, whatever the situation offers to us, given the opportunity, given the information, given the resource, right? So if you come to the point where if you look back and you wonder how your child would come to this point, it's not meaningful to start asking yourself, what did I do wrong, right? Because that's asking the wrong question. What in actual fact now you should be asking is like, what is my child going through right now, right? And to now start considering what I need to do now for my child to learn about what he or she is going through at this point in time. Because obviously it's important enough for them to talk about it. Obviously it's important enough for you to know about it, by whatever means possible. It could be coincidental, right? But whatever it is at that point in time is the most important point, right? Therefore, I would say if it's something against your values, against your faith, compose yourself, take time out, acknowledge your child, appreciate your child, affirm your child for having to express that so courageously and boldly, especially in a climate like this in our society, and then call for some time out, we say, and ask for the opportunity to talk about it again. So it could sound something like, "Oh wow, thanks son for actually bringing this up. It must have taken a lot out from you. And you take a long time to think about this and to actually bring it up. I really appreciate that. And this is something I didn't expect. It has made me think about it, and I want to think more about it. Would you be interested to talk about it a bit more and at least I can get my head around what this is about, then we can have a more meaningful conversation. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Something like that, along those lines, right? So that the child knows that you're not close to this, and that you will also be able to find some time to compose yourself, pray about it. Maybe do a bit more research about it. Maybe and at least you can come back to the discussion with your child.
Yes,
Right.
yes. So it would seem that the important thing is not to ask ourselves the wrong question, which is what did I do wrong,
Yeah.
but rather challenge ourselves with the right question, which is what can I do right from now on? Oh.
More appropriate as opposed to right.
That's right.
We are never perfect, right? There's
Yes,
no right.
yes,
In
yes,
that sense,
yes.
it's very hard to find a
What
right
is
thing.
my best response right now
Yes.
that will really address the needs of
Yes.
both my child and myself?
Yes, more so best response at this point in time.
Yes.
Right,
yes.
and the more attuned we are to our child, the better our response will be. Right, and the last thing you want to do is to overcompensate. Meaning to say that, oh no, I did something wrong, or did I do something wrong, that kind of thing, or I need to right the wrong, therefore, a lot of things that I do now, in true experience, seem to push the child further away.
Yes.
Because you're overcompensating, you're trying to right the wrong that you think that you have done something wrong, then you're trying to right it every step of the way. But in effect, you're actually scaring the child. You're making the child a bit more frustrated. You are working the child towards possibly even resentment at some point.
Yeah, that's so important, right? That we
Yeah.
really let the child know that we are on their side.
Yeah.
Not like like we said, not that we condone certain behaviors, but
Yeah.
rather we are with them as persons,
Yeah.
as children of God, whom we want to love and journey with.
Yes.
All right, and then continue to support them on the journey, so that at the end of the journey, we pray and lead them to God's grace,
Yes.
that they will find the true love of their lives, which is Christ Himself.
Yeah, and usually, they no longer needs you to. They no longer need you to tell them what the faith teaches about this lifestyle or this behavior. By that time, if they ever do come up to you about it, right, they would have already known what you've taught them already about what the church stand is and what the church teachings are, right? So that is really a non-starter to begin with.
That's right. That's right.
Really, because they have got everything there. Now they're figuring out what this is. What's that about, and what am I about? Who am I? So usually when that comes out, it's really not about that anymore. So maybe you want to consider not having to go down the road of like, hey, the church says this. No, how can you do this? This is not right. This is wrong. Those kind of conversation has its place. Done already usually. High tendency is that it's already been communicated, and the child knows that. Even if it has to come out again, it will be some time down the road if they want to further talk about this again, and maybe from a different angle, but not at that point in time for sure. Not anytime in the near future. Yeah. So if it helps, parents would like to consider also going for counselling themselves, because have a professional platform to really talk it out, whatever that's there in the mind, whatever that's in the heart, even and complement that with a spiritual direction. Because there are two different things altogether, right? So if a spiritual director is available, you would like to also talk about the faith aspect of your query about what's manifesting within you, and what you are experiencing in your family, how the dynamic is playing out in terms of the relationship, everything else, and then at the same time doing the counseling for the purposes of getting connected with what you are going through emotionally, psychologically, even some of them physically as well, because it's manifestation, a psychomatic manifestation, right, of things that you may not expect, but it's coming out, right? What I do. So there are two separate things, and you can seek out those resources for yourself to benefit yourself, so that when you come back to the discussion, you are more clear in your mind, in your heart. There's more head space, more heart space, and then the conversation can be more meaningful, as opposed to having to be so possibly reactive, maybe, or even defensive for some, right? And always ready to take out the ammunition and then shoot back your child or whoever is bringing up the conversation, right? It becomes very unconstructive. It doesn't help the relationship deepens. It doesn't help the understanding as well.
Yes, absolutely. So it would seem that if parents were to be faced with this situation, a few things that can be done. Number one is pray, right? And let the Lord guide you to do the right thing and to seek the right resources. Number two, if necessary, seek counseling. Number three, seek spiritual direction. Number four, to seek the support of a group, like Encourage in Singapore, to actually continue to support us on that journey. And then really through that, that will provide us with a window to know better what kind of a journey our child will need in order to find his or her meaning ultimately in life, right?
Yes.
And ultimately, for every person, that end of that road has to be Christ. It's just a question of how the journey takes, and with all the twists and turns that will come along the way, and the pains and sorrows and the ups and downs that will come along the way, but we just have to be there for them.
Yes, and I would just add one more point to that, is to read widely.
Yeah.
Because this is something that is really unfamiliar to many of us, right? So if you could read both the church writing on this, it may not be the teachings, it's about the topic, right? You could read that. You could also read the Circular Research and Journal, and also learn how to identify research and journals or writings that are objectives and gives you a good balanced view.
That's right.
So that it can inform you on this.
That's right. That's right. Because there are a lot of articles out there which are actually totally not balanced and don't give very accurate ideas, and are based on rather poorly designed studies and so on. So we have to be careful of those.
But see, to that point is that some of us don't know what is right, what is wrong.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
so get the right resources.
Correct. Get the right resources, and also learn how to identify literature that provide really objective findings.
Yes.
They are not skewed. They are not, I guess, influenced, by certain agendas.
That's great. Thank you very much, Nicholas. Is there any thing else you'd like to share with our Catholic parents before we end this podcast?
Yeah. Spiritual development takes a very different trajectory, right? So as a psychologist, we are very interested in, for example, the psychosocial development, right? The neurodevelopment, for example, even cognitive development. So different theories informs us, right? And it helps us as psychologists explain the behavior. So the Erik Erikson, John Piaget, but there's this other group of theories, the likes of, like, say, James Fowler, for example, that explains to us each of us develop differently in our faith, right? At the moment we encounter the faith, at whatever age that we are, it takes a certain trajectory for us to really fully appreciate our faith, right? So we want to recognize that in the event that our child highlights to us this interest, right? We want to recognize that the faith development develops, the faith growth, nurturing develops very differently from the psychosocial, emotional track, right? And we want to not put them together and appreciate them for where they are at. So in the context of, like, say, faith, for example, a question like, how come all these years I've been teaching you, I send you the catechism, I teach you all about the faith accounting, you should know only what, right? But Fowler explains that although you have taught me all this about my faith, there will be a certain stage which they will wonder what that means to me as far as my application of faith is concerned. Right? It is very different from, like, say, the neurological development of a child. By around the same age, they are more limbic, right? But they're not prefrontal, for example, right? So if you want them to appreciate, like, say, John Paul II's teaching, which typically requires a little bit more prefrontal, you cannot expect them to articulate a prefrontal understanding of the teaching of the church at that point in time to consider their choice of lifestyle. It's totally different altogether. So to help, I'm just sharing this to help parents, adults who are wondering about this, curious about struggling with this, to put them separate. If you are struggling with this, where the faith is concerned, right, look at it from the point of view of where they are at. Where are you at first spiritually? You could be very deep in your faith already, and you obviously concerned about your child's salvation, put it that way, right? Then your behavior could be influenced by the understanding or that level of faith where you're at, and you would like that of your child to level up with you. It's going to be unrealistic and not practical, because developmentally speaking, they are only now fully limbic. So to get to where you are requires a full prefrontal, for example. There's no match. It doesn't level up. Right? So as a result of that, we want to manage ourselves, our expectations, and to also manage the way we respond as a result of that reality. Right? Among many others, this is just one example. So the faith development, then the emotional development, the neurological development, for example. Right? So pace yourself. In the event where you lack clarity, seek professional help for clarity. So courage is one of them, indigo is one of them, there are a few as well. Right? Seek professional help, read, right? And seek guidance. Right? And you're not alone. I think increasingly there are communities and resources for available out there to support you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Nicholas.
Okay.
Okay, it's again been another very enriching experience having a conversation with you.
No worries.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, there you have it, dear parents. We are very grateful today that we've had Nicholas Lim, who has come to share his insights and expertise in this area of how we can journey with our child if he or she comes out and identifies as same-sex attracted. So, till we meet again, just remember, you have that support available. We'll provide them and we'll share with them in the show notes. You are not alone. Take care and God bless you and your family always. Bye-bye.